Hello everyone. Hi my friends. Welcome back to this channel. I am Ruth Floren. For those of you who are new here, I am a former forensic psychology lecturer and I have spent 3 years of giving class in psychology field. In our previous video, we discussed training in forensic psychology, what it takes to become a professional who is competent to work inside the courtroom environment. We talk about the responsibilities, the preparation, and the seriousness of this field. And today, we are entering one of the most emotionally sensitive and complex areas in forensic psychology. We are going to talk about child custody and parenting evaluations. Now, my friends, let me ask you something right from the beginning. When parents are fighting over custody, who speaks for the child? Who protects the psychological well-being of that child in the middle of conflict? This is where forensic psychology becomes deeply human. So, I invite you to stay with me, to think with me, and to reflect critically as we explore how psychologists assist courts in making decisions that can shape a child's entire future. Now, let's begin. Now, let me invite you to pause for a moment to think about something. Okay, imagine a situation where two parents are going through a divorce and both of them believe they are the better parent. Both of them want the child to live with them. Both of them present their own stories in court. Now the question becomes very important. How does a judge decide what is truly best for the child? The judge may hear legal arguments, but legal arguments alone cannot fully explain the emotional bonds within a family. They cannot always reveal the psychological needs of a child. This is where psychology enters the courtroom. So, over the past 30 years, courts around the world have increasingly relied on psychologists and other mental health professionals to assist in these difficult decisions. Psychologists can evaluate family, relationships, parenting capacity, and the emotional needs of children. So instead of relying only on competing parental claims, the court can receive professional insight grounded in psychological science. And that shift has been very significant. It reflects a growing recognition that decisions about children must include a deep understanding of human development and family dynamics. Now, let me ask you another question. When you hear the phrase child custody evaluation, what do you imagine? So some people imagine a simple interview with the parents. Others imagine psychological testing. But in reality, A custody evaluation is much more complex than that. So, a child custody evaluation is a systematic and structured forensic assessment conducted by a psychologist or other trained mental health professional. The evaluator does not simply listen to one side of the story. Instead, the evaluator tries to understand the entire family system. Who are the parents? How they interact with their children? What emotional bonds exist between them? How do the children respond to each parent? So the goal is not to decide the legal outcome. That responsibility remains with the judge. Rather, the psychologists provide professional insight that helps the courts understand the psychological reality behind the conflict. My friends, let me invite you to think about another important question. When parents fight over custody, whose interests should the court prioritize? Is it the parents, their legal rights, or their personal wishes? Which one? In family law, the guiding principle is something called the best interest of the child. This principle shifts the focus away from parental competition and toward the well-being of the child. But determining what is truly in a child's best interest is not always simple. For example, a child may love both parents deeply, yet one home environment may be more stable. One parent may be better able to provide emotional support. Another parent may struggle with stress, conflict, or psychological difficulties. So psychologists therefore helped the court examine these complex factors through the lens of child development and emotional well-being. And this is where psychological expertise becomes essential. Now, let me ask you to reflect on something else. If you were asked to evaluate an entire family in conflict, what knowledge would you need? You would probably need to understand how children develop emotionally and psychologically. You would need to understand what healthy parenting looks like. You will also need to understand how divorce and family conflict affect children. This is why custody evaluators require a broad range of professional competencies. They must understand child development. Because of what? Because the needs of 5-year-old child are very different from the needs of a teenager. They must understand parenting qualities, including emotional responsiveness, the structure, and the stability. They must also be skilled in psychological assessment, which may involve interviews, behavioral observation, and sometimes standardized testing. And perhaps most importantly, they must be able to analyze family dynamics, particularly in situations where conflict between parents becomes intense and prolonged. Now imagine for a moment the complexity of this task. In many psychological assessments, a psychologist evaluates one individual. But in custody evaluations, the psychologist is trying to understand an entire network of relationships. There may be two parents, several children, extended family members, teachers, therapists, and other individuals who influence the child's life. Each child may also be at a different developmental stage. So one child may be struggling emotionally with the divorce, while another may appear more resilient. At the same time, parents may present themselves in very positive ways during evaluations. This means the psychologist must carefully interpret what is genuine and what may be influenced by the legal conflict. Because of these complexities, custody evaluations are widely considered one of the most challenging areas of forensic psychology. Let me also invite you to think the experience from the family's perspective. Imagine being a parent who is already going through a painful divorce and then being asked to participate in a detailed psychological evaluation. Parents may attend multiple interviews. They may be asked very personal questions about their relationships, their parenting, and even their own childhood experiences. Children may also be interviewed and observed interacting with their parents. The evaluation process may involve teachers, therapists, and other professionals who know the family. And this entire process may take several months to complete. So while custody evaluations are designed to assist the court, they can also feel intense and intrusive for families. This is why evaluators must conduct their work with great sensitivity and ethical responsibility. So, my friends, as we close today's discussion, I want you to reflect on something. Child custody evaluations are not simply technical assessments. They are not just reports written for court. They are about real children, real families, real emotional consequences. So, as forensic psychologists, we are not choosing sides. We are not advocates for one parent over another. We are professionals who must carefully examine evidence, understand development, and always ask one central question. what truly serves and best interest of child. In our next lesson, we will go deeper. We will talk about the ethical challenges in custody evaluations, and believe me, this is where things become even more complex and intellectually demanding. So stay with me. If you are serious about understanding forensic psychology in a deeper and more professional way, this series is for you. Thank you for learning with me today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.